Okay, Emma, please.
Well, I feel that my voice is sorely lacking on the majority report.
Wait. Look, Sam is unpopular.
I do deserve a vacation at Disney World. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome Emma to the show.
It is Thursday.
I think you need to take over for Sam.
Yes, please.
No. I'm gonna pause you right there.
Wait, what?
You can't encourage Emma to live like this. And I'll tell you why. So was offered to tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. So was offered to tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. What? Tour, sushi, and poker.
Seems upset.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. So was offered to tour, sushi, and that's what we call the biz. Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Right.
Tour, sushi, and poker.
We're gonna get demonetized.
I just think that what you did to Tim Pool was mean.
Free speech.
That's not what we're about here. Look at how sad he's become now. You shouldn't even talk about it. I think you're responsible.
I probably am in a certain way, but let's get to the meltdown here.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Oh my God.
Tour,
Wow.
sushi. I'm sorry, I'm losing my fucking mind. So was offered a tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Logic.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. Boy. Tour. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid. Tour. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. Had this debate 7,000 times. A little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid. Tour. I'm losing my fucking mind.
Some people just don't understand.
So I'm not trying to be a dick right now, but like I absolutely think the U.S. should be providing me with a life and kids.
That's not what we're talking about here. Okay, all right.
It's not a fun job. Tour?
That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing.
Willy Wonka tour?
That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing.
What's that offered a tour?
That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing.
What's that offered a tour?
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Rogan has done it again.
That offered a tour?
That's a real thing. That's
Poker with the boys.
I think he might be blowing it out of proportion.
real thing.
That's poker with the boys. That offered a tour?
That's a real thing. That's
Poker.
Let's go, Joe.
Tour? Sushi and poker with the boys.
Take it easy, Dan.
Tour? Sushi and poker.
Things have really gotten out of hand.
Sushi and poker with the boys.
Delusional.
Tour?
Deluded.
Sushi.
You don't have a clue as to what's going on. Live YouTube.
Sam has like the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Pogger.
Sam doesn't want to do this show anymore. It was so much easier when the majority report was just you. You were happy.
Let's change the subject.
Rangers and Knicks are doing great.
Now shut up. I don't want people saying reckless things on your program.
That's
Now,
one of the most difficult parts about this show.
This is a pro-killing podcast.
I'm thinking maybe it's time we bury the hatchet.
Left is best. Trump Violet.
Tour?
Don't be foolish and don't fucking tweet at me and don't bitch. The way Emma has cucked all of these people, love it.
That's where my heart is. So I wrote my honors thesis about it.
She wrote an honest thesis. I guess I should hand the main mic to you now.
You want to go right on the foreign policy.
We already fund Israel, dude. Are you against that?
That's a tougher question. I have an answer.
Incredible theme song.
Hi, Bumbler.
Emma Vigeland, absolutely one of my favorite people. Actually, not just in the game, like period.
That was so well done. Okay, Bender, your audio's out now.
Oh yeah, we lost you.
Wow.
Oh wait, no, you're back.
Wow.
That was so good. The animation and like the way the coloring for the panels, and I love how you guys were like little angels, and I guess I don't know what we were holding up, but I mean, wow. I
was so
I had
well
high
done.
expectations for the visuals, but they were amazing.
I really enjoyed that. I was laughing.
really
I was
did
smiling.
too.
I was singing along. I liked the breakdancing Tim Pool bit. That was great.
Yeah. Yes,
Also,
that
unfortunately,
was.
I don't know when I said the quote you pulled from me, but only half true now. The Rangers have not been doing so good.
No, they have not. And they have not been doing well.
But I think the rejoinder of I'm not going to let you say reckless things on this program actually kind of ties it up pretty nicely.
Yes.
Right,
Any New York sports team is doing well.
Yeah, exactly right. And the maybe my favorite part was Joe Rogan being a cat in the litter box. It was so amazing. Charlie Sheeher, 10 out of 10 intro, no notes. Morpheus saying, I don't know why, but Michael saying logic after one of the tour sushi and poker with the boys lines is one of the funniest parts of the entire theme.
I like Michael saying, don't tweet at me.
Majority report wardrobe coordinator. Okay, that's effing hilarious. A+ visuals. I mean, just rave reviews here. Eli from New Jersey, masterpiece. Put it in the MoMA. Sarah from Wallingford cries, an audio listener. Yeah, you'll have to check it out later. Northwest car hater. Oh my god, that animation! I loved Tim Pac-Man, the little kid bit, ending in a big hug from Daddy Trump, and I teared up a bit at the actual clip of Emma and Michael at the end. Yeah, that's incredibly sweet.
Amazing work.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I mean, it's so crazy that anyone even cares what I have to say and puts that an amount of time into like doing something to be nice just about our work here. It really does touch me. So thank you so much. Holtenheim, I'm going to need a hoodie with glowing eyes of Emma saying this is a pro-killing podcast at the bottom. I don't know if I'm going to sign off on that.
I forgot I forgot where that was coming from. I always see it in the chat, and I guess it's immortalized in the Funhouse song.
Yeah, I don't know what that was about. So anyway.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Zionists.
Exactly. Smears.
So okay. As I mentioned, we're not going to take calls today. I just want to run through some clips because there was a lot of good stuff to get to today. Let's do this Sean O'Brien thing. So okay. Basically, I think we've been a bit hands off with Sean O'Brien being more Republican friendly because look, I'm not a member of the Teamsters. I'm in SAG-AFTRA, but I'm not a member of the Teamsters. I can't speak to what the rank and file want from their leadership. And Teamsters have traditionally been a bit more conservative, right, than other unions like the UAW or SEIU. It has a higher percentage of white workers, trucking, freight, warehouse work, etc. And so they're more likely to support Trump for reasons that are about, not related, frankly, to his labor politics, because we know that the Biden administration was a massive improvement on that issue over Donald Trump. And so, I have an understanding that, O'Brien has to represent his members in a way and is a politician because he has to get a majority of their support to continue to lead the Teamsters. But this was just inexcusable. And there were a lot of people in the labor world just saying, holy crap.
A lot of Teamsters.
And a lot of Teamsters saying, this is beyond the pale. Here is Sean O'Brien on Fox News being asked about Trump's labor secretary nominee, and he kind of reverses his position, but at the she reversed her decision on right to work in the PRO Act because she needs to get confirmed by a bunch of Republicans, and they don't like the fact that the PRO Act would have banned right to work, I believe, which it makes it right to work laws are horrible for unions in this country. They make it basically illegal to require workers to pay union dues, which is at the core of union power. It guts their financial resources and their density, and it also makes it less likely for people to join because they're like, why would I join this organization if it's not going to be basically, on my behalf, providing me with benefits, care, etc.
Yeah, and Chavez de Reamer here was, when she was originally floated, a number of senators, including mine in North Dakota, John Hoeven, who is a banker, who is the son of a banker, said, I'm a right to work guy. And so I don't know if I can support Chavez de Reamer. And we've seen Chavez de Reamer's principles on that are easily thrown overboard.
So here's Fox Business asking him about that.
Well, we'll see, because maybe there's a little bit of Republican resistance to her nomination. She was a congresswoman from Oregon. She's got a pedigree that unions, I think, would probably appreciate. She's the daughter of a Teamsters member. She co-sponsored the Protecting the Right to Organize Act, supported UPS workers' right to strike, supported raising working standards, and fought to keep jobs from going overseas. But the one thing that at least Senator Rand Paul was hung up on was the clause in the Protecting the Right to Organize Act that would have potentially see right to work in states be overturned. So he questioned her on that. Listen to this.
I fully, fairly, and support states who want to protect their right to work. I have said that to every senator that I have
So
visited
you
with.
no longer support the aspect of the PRO Act that would have overturned state right to work laws?
Yeah, there were so many parts.
That's a yes?
Yes.
So what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's a couple things. That's been Senator Paul's agenda. Every chance he gets, he wants to introduce national right to work, which we do not support at all. We don't support right to work at all. We understand it's in the majority of the states out there. But that PRO Act, as it was never voted on, she supported it, she co-signed it, never voted on. But there is an opportunity to work bipartisan. I'm working with senators like Josh Hawley to come up with a form of the PRO Act that may not include that. There's been a lot of talk that if there is an issue with right to work, it should be done on a state level, not on a national level. And look, that's the beauty of having conversations with people from the other side, where you can collaborate and actually find out what works for that state, what doesn't work for it, but more importantly, what's going to work for the American worker.
So you support the president's nominee for labor secretary. What's your broader view on?
That's it. So he was nervous there a little bit, but look at how, I mean, it was unambiguous for the National Right to Work Committee. Everyone is feeling the heat on right to work today. Even Sean O'Brien acknowledges that right to work may be what works best for some states. I don't know who funds the National Right to Work Committee, but that is a union busting organization, and that is inexcusable. I mean, right to work is responsible for the gutting of our union density. In the 1960s, our union density was like in the 30s. Now we're out at 10 to 11%. And a big part of that is that a majority of states in this country, 27, have right to work laws, which really make it much more difficult to organize. To have the leader of one of the largest unions in the country say that and reverse his position is just completely insane. And that was one of the most important parts of the PRO Act. One of the most important parts. And he's essentially just saying, we got to work bipartisanly. And I'm sick of hearing about his bromance with Josh Hawley. Like, what has Josh Hawley ever done for working people and for unions? We're giving credibility to the aesthetic of some right-wing populist that has no there. It's just about the vibes. And to have a union leader endorse that is just beyond the pale. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a weakness masquerading as independent streak. It is. They do have an issue with rank and file not liking Democrats. We can get into how justifiable that is historically, but there's a video they put out in 2020, Bradley, if you can put that up there, which is maybe a better statement on right to work than what was delivered on Fox News there by Sean O'Brien.
Over the past decade, some lawmakers have fought to curb the rights of workers, to join together to fight for fair wages, better benefits, and a voice in the workplace. Right to work, they say, is good for business. But the policy is a ruse. For workers, it is merely the right to work for less. This November, working Americans must exercise their own right to send these lawmakers packing. Go to www.teamstersvote.com and learn more about where the presidential candidates stand on union rights. Let's make sure 2020 is the year.
Yeah, that was in 2020, but much better explanation than what Sean O'Brien said there. Thoughts, fellas?
I mean, he's continued to prove his critics and naysayers right with these horrible sort of, at the very least, public appearances.
Right. And he claimed that Kamala said, "We'll win with or without you," which I have heard it was a complete mischaracterization of that conversation. So.
I mean, I don't know about that, but I think the Dems did fumble the bag.
He said it to Tucker Carlson, and there has been no corroboration.
Yeah.
I mean, people had no problem throwing her and her campaign under the bus for everything else. So, I mean, if she said this would definitely have come out.
It would have, yeah.
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 I mean, I think being overly conciliatory on right to work is being, overly conciliatory on the right to organized labor in general. And given the historical number of assaults on people organizing, it, it's just not the time to be like giving any kind of credence to the idea that, well, some states, it's just not right for people to be able to organize effectively as the labor force, because that's right for every state. It's right for every worker. If anything, we need to be expanding those rights to be being more inclusive of undocumented workers in the country, not like, conceding that, well, maybe Alabama just doesn't need labor unions because people down there are they're poorer, so they're less deserving of rights, or it's harder for businesses to turn a profit there, so they should be able to exploit their workers. What is the justification for right to work in some states versus other states? That is not just an obvious handout to business. I mean, next they'll be some states child labor is right for those states. Some states just don't have as many able-bodied adults, so maybe we need to lower the age of working to 12. They are doing that already.
Well,
Yeah,
they're doing
some
that in
states have
Arkansas.
done that.
Was Arkansas, I think, right? Is that where Sarah Huckabee Sanders is the governor? I'm pretty sure that's the case. Yep. But they overturned. They basically removed paperwork requirements for child laborers because they want to be able to use specifically undocumented child laborers where they don't want to have that documentation. They don't want to have a paper trail. And what do you know? Those are some of the same exact states that have right to work laws, the South, and it's the hardest to organize there.
And and it's always industries that are especially brutal, right? Last I heard it was kids working in a slaughterhouse, and it was this is exactly what we need, Upton Sinclair in the jungle, but for children, a children's version.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there's a good Dustin Costello, who's a Teamsters member who writes for Jacobin occasionally, had a good piece in Jacobin, A Return to Gompers, the subhead being they got rid of it. Basically, this is a sign of weakness, and I think he also released something in Unheard recently for people who want a Teamsters perspective critical of O'Brien's approach here. I would direct you there.
Maddie Moron, this is a structural weakness of American business unionism, a form of trade unionism in which O'Brien's strategy is a normal one. That's why ultimately the trade union movement in this country is going to have to embrace class struggle unionism again. And with the tearing down of the post-war labor regime, these unions are not going to face that pivot. The unions are going to face that pivot whether they want to or not. Dave from Jamaica.
And some unions seem to get it, like the IUPAT. I mean, of course, Sean Fain, I think pretty much we're all agreed that we prefer his approach than Sean O'Brien's here. I think it's possible, and I think O'Brien's going to run out of slack pretty quick here if you keep saying this sort of shit.
Clay Donia says, what does Josh Hawley have on Sean O'Brien? Why does he always mention him? He was on his podcast. They must be friends. I really don't know.
It's power and access. I mean, I think O'Brien made the one. I don't know what his individual politics are, but I think very outwardly they made a bet that Trump was going to win the election, and they're going to try to get what they can.
Get ours.
They're not going to get nothing. But yeah, exactly. Do they get anything out of it?
No.
Let's see.
Maybe they'll get favorable treatment from them, but it's cool to just completely throw, I guess, the other workforces under the bus, according to Sean O'Brien. He in that interview was talking about how it's a great thing what Doge is doing, cutting waste with the federal workforce. Nice solidarity.
He even said he said cutting the fat.
Oh, cutting the fat.
Yeah.
You mean the workers. Workers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, as Costello points, a welcome early move came in the form of a surprisingly pro-union nominee. That's Chavez DeReamer. But the new administration can't pursue much by way of pro-worker reform if it collapses the entire labor law architecture.
All right, here's a fun story, at least for me. Kathy Hochul, Unchained, ? I just find it funny to see, she was picked by Cuomo to not be a threat to him, right? I mean, this is the way that guy operated. But then he's a total creep, had to resign, had to leave office. And so she became the governor. She won re-election more narrowly than she probably should have in New York State. I mean, more narrowly than she should have. Nancy Pelosi called her out and was saying how she's a drag on the rest of New York Democrats. So she's not the best politician, but she's sort of being handed a gift by Donald Trump to be I'm the real New Yorker and I'm going to stand up to the king. Speaking of that, I mean, Bradley, pull up the king thing. So this series of events is that Eric Adams is being extorted by the Trump Department of Justice to enforce...
Openly being extorted. We should really
openly
like, ram that home. Yeah. Like,
exactly.
It is so
like
obvious
it was a quid pro
to the
quo.
point. Yeah. I'm sure you guys played the clip. The head of ICE said it on Fox News sitting next to Eric Adams. If you don't know, if you cause any trouble for us with what we're set out to do here in New York, we won't be sitting here together on TV. I'll be up in your office saying what happened to our deal. What deal? What are you talking about? What?
Right. And the prosecutor who resigned called it a quid pro quo in the actual document. The, again, Trump-appointed Federalist Society Scalia clerk, who was appointed on January 21st, said that in her resignation letter, just to give you a sense of how insanely corrupt this is. So basically, Trump truths about this. He decides, he decrees, the king, congestion pricing is dead. Manhattan and all of New York is saved. Long live the king. Anybody that lives in Manhattan or New York, including like a bunch of these Barstool chuds, are tweeting angrily about this because they're like, oh, actually, congestion pricing is pretty awesome. We have way less traffic. The air feels better. Ambulances can get from one part of the city to the other, and it can save literal lives. We're really enjoying it. And so they were pushing back, funnily enough, on social media. It's popular within the city. But Hochul also has to contend with, the upstate areas, and Phil Murphy right now is sucking up to Donald Trump because the New Jersey commuters are all upset that, God forbid, they have to take public transit to go into the city or pay a $9 toll. The people who are lower income are exempt from this, folks. You can get a waiver. So it's just wealthier suburbanites who are pissed that they have to pay a fee to drive into the city. So Trump decrees it's over. He can't do that. It's a state law. It was passed in New York State. It's being implemented. Subway repairs are being funded by this. It's already underway. And then do you have the photo of him tweeting out he tweeted out a Photoshop Time magazine cover of him saying, "I'm the king." We don't need it. People have seen it before, whatever, maybe for later, with a crown on his head. And here's Kathy Hochul responding to it, and she got a little spicy, said the damn word. Ooh.
Governor, you canceled a meeting with Donald Trump last week. Do you regret doing that, where you could have maybe struck a deal with him? And would you still be willing to strike a deal with him now if he agrees to give the $13 billion or whatever it would be if congestion pricing is turned off?
Bernadette, there is no connection between me saying to him last week, the day he invited me to come down to have this conversation, which I have been pursuing, and then 3 hours later, I see on national television that his Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is now saying she's filing charges against me as governor of New York. I called up the president and said, I'm not coming down tomorrow. I don't know what your plan is. You're going to slap handcuffs on my goddamn hands? So I'm not coming down, but I will be back later in the week, which would be this week, when our national governors gather. And he said, that's fine. We'll get together and we'll talk. That's why I know it has no bearing, despite the premise behind the question.
All right.
Dark Kathy, what are you going to do? Slap handcuffs on my goddamn hands? I'll go to jail to protect the congestion pricing. So this
was someone, by the way, who just a couple of months ago had paused the
how times have changed.
I know.
Because it ended up being an insanely popular policy here in New York.
Yes.
Like there's video
more
after
popular
video of people like talking shit about it, and then like a few days later posting another video. It's like, I've been driving here with congestion pricing, and I gotta say, I'm sorry for what I said. This is great.
Yeah. So she's feeling herself right now. She's feeling a little emboldened, and she gets gifts like this. I mean, she gets to do the it's not nationalism, statism, whatever, but like New York federalism or sovereignty, the New York pride thing, because Trump's just like, he's triggering the libs with this. That's what his supporters love about him. But like, everybody's supposed to be your constituent as the president. Like, not to be corny about this, but who are you triggering? The people that you're supposed to be protecting and serving and like using the Constitution to help. I mean, that's kind of the core promise of the presidency, ideally. But here's the photo of him. Congestion pricing is dead. Manhattan and all of New York is saved. Long live the king. And then he put out this Photoshop Time magazine cover of him, which he loved to do at his golf courses prior to this.
It's interesting that these people are the ones who celebrate Western civilization, because in my opinion, one of the things that I would associate with maybe development of the Western Hemisphere is not doing king stuff.
Well, Hochul said that at another point in her press conference, like, we fought 250 years ago against the king, and we're not going to have one now. And so it's easy.
France did too.
It's an easy note to hit. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny to see him reinvigorating her, because she was primed for a serious and potentially like fatal for her political career primary challenge just, around the corner, and still might happen, but
should still happen. I mean,
it probably should. Yeah. But I mean, Delgado is the same kind of person. So, I mean, or Richie Torres is the other person that is being floated. And frankly, I'd rather have Hochul over Richie Torres. But I pretty much want to have any other Democrat.
If the state would vote for Richie Torres, we need to start talking about voters being the problem again.
Yeah. But thoughts, you guys, on this whole shenanigans? These whole shenanigans here?
I mean, yeah, I think this is all to distract people. I hate to call what Trump does a distraction, because there are always a human cost to it. But so much of what he's been doing over the past 3 weeks seems to be trying to distract his voters from the fact that he's firing half of them. And also the price of eggs hasn't gone down. And so look at me trigger the governor of New York, that lib state. Look at me beefing with, I don't know, Rashida Tlaib online, things that are going to, I think, not really be sustainable to get people to forget that they're being consistently made poorer. Right. I mean, I thought that was a big part of why he had that press conference with Elon too, because, on every local news channel you watch now, there are just endless coverage of 50 people from the USDA in Iowa were fired, and they make sure that the soil is clean. And also the price of eggs just hit $14 here. And, they're saying there's going to be a shortage of this. The news all over America is bad. And I think it's going to catch up with him right now. He's still in that phase of you got to let the chef cook. Biden really screwed things up. Look at me triggering the libs. But you can only distract people, I think, from the material conditions that they're experiencing for so long. Like I said on my own stream, I was just America's out of bread, so we're getting a lot of circuses, and so Trump is that. He's making the circus as big as possible before people become rightfully aware that he's part of the problem.
His disapproval rating has gone up 10 points in a month. It went from 41% to 51%. I headlined that yesterday, and it's that's a very quick turnaround. Usually the honeymoon lasts a little bit longer than the equivalent of 12 hours.
Planes are falling from the sky.
President years.
It's hard to ignore. Planes are falling from the sky.
Yes. President plane crash, trademark it.
There was Emma, excuse me, it's Captain Chaos.
Oh, sorry, Captain Plane Crash.
Harry Enton, the polling expert on CNN, had a segment today that basically showed that every recent poll is showing a multiple point step down already, and also that he's even underwater specifically as you were saying, when it specifically comes to the economy, which is surprising because seemingly that was his biggest benchmark.
Usually Republicans.
And Republicans in general, but relative to Harris, who that was always, I think, the issue in the 2024 cycle. And he's already hemorrhaging support on that specific front as well.
Yeah, and on that front, there's a lot to criticize Hakeem Jeffries for and Chuck Schumer. Although I think the ultimate goal should be to remove them, because I don't think they can be good. But people need to stop getting mad that they're emphasizing things like egg prices and stuff like that. That is an improvement for what the people who want them to just focus on the sort of power grab constitutionally. I think that's important too. But what's really going after Trump's numbers right now is the economic stuff that he's not going to be able to defy. And to have Democrats emphasizing that should be encouraged.
Yeah. Ryan from Rochester writes in, Biden couldn't distract people from their material conditions. Now Trump inherits that inescapable situation, right? Trump's a better distractor because of how he acts. But my issue with Jeffries and Chuck Schumer on that specific issue. Broadly, I think their messaging is like a massive, massive problem and their lack of desire to fight. But it's like, point out the egg prices and the material conditions and then offer an alternative. They're not doing that. They're still just criticizing him on that terrain. But I didn't even, I think, connect, just to clarify for people, why Hochul was even, what is the connection of Eric Adams and him going after Hochul? Like, Pam Bondi's apparently said you're next last week to Hochul and State AG Letitia James, because they are a part of this group that is considering removing Eric Adams because he is compromised by being extorted by the President of the United States. They haven't even done it yet. They just put together a panel to consider doing it. And I was pretty pissed about the fact that they hadn't just done it. Obviously, he's compromised, and I'm concerned for immigrants in the city being rounded up by ICE. So you have to weigh that. But the other consideration apparently is that if Adams gets removed after March 26, then they don't have to do a special election. The concern is that if they remove him prior to that date, a special election will have to be held before there is the primary, where I'm ranking Mamdani first. I hope a lot of other people do. It's a real opportunity for us as New Yorkers. The concern is that because Andrew Cuomo has such name recognition, that he would win in a special election, and that would give him a significant advantage going into that primary. So the deadline is March 26, apparently, and then after that, you wouldn't need to have a special election prior to the primary in June.
Also, just a note related to Jeffries on this front. Jeff Colton, reporter, 8 black state legislators asked Hochul not to remove Adams. Quote, our communities will never let it forget, and it will never forget it if she does, and she should leave it up to voters. I've seen like Jabari Brispert point out the sort of silliness of this. But I would also just emphasize what Jeff Colton says in the second part. Led by Brooklyn Dem leaders Rodney Pichot Hermelin, list also includes lawmakers close to Jeffries.
Yeah. And also the man that would replace Eric Adams is also a black man. So it's just like it just gets a little ridiculous at this point. I mean,
that's just also the New York machine just desperately clinging on to what they know is theirs, which is, Adams is going to be in their corner if he hangs on, and someone like Jumaane Williams, the New York City public advocate who would be his successor, is like resolutely anti-machine.
Right. I mean, do you remember when the Congressional Black Caucus endorsed Elliot Engel when Jamal Bowman was running against him? I mean, there's a lot of hypocrisy there.
This is corruption. I mean, Jabari Brisport, I'll keep this respectful. Defending Eric Adams because he's a black mayor while he allows ICE to harass black immigrant communities is contradictory. And, I appreciate Jabari keeping that respectful.
Right.
NBC is reporting just as of like 15 minutes ago that Hochul, according to a source, Hochul won't remove Adams from office right now, but will limit his power and impose strict guardrails on his administration. I don't know what that means yet, but I guess we'll find out. Apparently, she's going to have a press conference at 4 p.m.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it's a tricky situation for what I just said. I mean, there's the electoral considerations, and then there's also the safety considerations for people who are immigrants. Like Eric Adams said, I think yesterday, that ICE can enter churches if they want, or refuse to decline it, and said, okay, maybe they need a warrant. Like, doubtful.
And just to be clear, like, that stuff is massively unpopular. ICE going into schools or churches, like, to the extent that they don't do that, it's not just because cities won't let them, it's because it massively backfires in terms of PR.
Also, I mean, it clearly won't stop at that as well. Like, it'll just continue to, escalate, right? Like, that's the danger of trying to ignore how it's going to impact the most vulnerable community, because, Trump will just continue to like push, and his law enforcement apparatus will continue to overstep in New York City, and the police will be emboldened as well as a result of that, like the already terrible NYPD. But yeah, no, I mean, Kathy Hochul should just call out Pam Bondi and be like, oh, I see, I thought you were going after Hillary Clinton, And now suddenly, whatever happened to that? Whatever happened to Hillary? Yeah. Well, like Hillary's still walking free. Like, just really dig it in. Remind Trump voters that they're not getting anything. It's just like, oh yeah, I guess
agents of Hillary Clinton. Like, actually, you're the dog that won't bark against Hillary.
I like
Exactly.
Hochul
It's
becoming Jimmy
secret-
Dore and just obsessed with the Seth Rich case all of a sudden.
Yeah, like Trump has 3 puppet masters: Netanyahu, Elon Musk, and Hillary Clinton. They're just like the real like living tribunal behind the presidency. It's true. I mean, it's basically true.
He was at their wedding, folks.
That's very true.
Kathy Hochul goes in her press conference today. What happened to the laptop from hell?
Yeah, what happened?
Where's Hunter?
Hunter's walking free. 17 January 6ers are already back in prison due to incidents, and Hunter Biden's walking free. Yeah, deep state's really being cleaned up.
Interesting.
It's very. I'm just asking questions. I'm asking why Hillary. Oh, we're gonna send immigrants to Guantanamo. Hillary Clinton is living free. That's crazy. That's crazy to me. But I mean, I guess I just remember what he was saying. So
I remember promises made.
Yeah. Well,
She locked up yet?
Nope.
That was
Trump
my
will be in
single
jail
issue,
before-
and I'm a single issue voter, and that was it.
To this day, I believe Trump or Elon will go to jail before Hillary Clinton goes to prison for anything.
This is why I can't believe in politics.
It's why you can't. It's like, where all your eggs are? Hillary has them. That's where she's buying them up. She's making
Her
cakes.
and Tyson.
and she's buying them up, making cakes, feeding them to, I don't know, endangered whales or
The
something.
mother hen of the deep state.
It's crazy. It's crazy they're out here.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Poof. All right, that was good. A guy from Brooklyn, Schumer and Gillibrand both voted to confirm the Department of Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, who is now going to withhold federal transportation funding for New York City. Yep.
Well, he was on road rules, so he must know something about transportation.
And that's a good point. It's the rules of the road. Shipster in Worcester says, Emma, it's generous of you to say that was photoshopped a time cover. It was most likely that they used AI. Good point.
Yeah, I got AI too from like that really cheap looking font that they used. Like, because you look like a nice thick font when you're writing Trump, that looked very wimpy. I'm not to engage in like typography analysis. I'm just saying it didn't strike me as virile type font.
AI needs about 2 more nuclear reactors worth of power per hour in order to render type in a consistent way. JJ, I would think a video of ICE using a battering ram to knock down a church door would be bad PR for them. You would think. Dave from Upstate, so is it red states' rights and blue states' wrongs? Pretty much. Morpheus, I guess Hawley must have told O'Brien that being a mighty man of valor means undermining your own union by giving right to work laws a pass. Pretty much. Yeah, there's a certain amount of pandering that I think can be maybe excused or looked away from. A policy statement like that is just unacceptable.
I mean, he's doing someone. I lost the IM. Maybe I'll just word search because it was a good snake balloon. Sean O'Brien is the Glenn Greenwald of labor leaders. He believes in the mythical Republican labor leader the same way Glenn thinks there's a Republican anti-war movement. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Dave from Upstate, imagine remembering a New York State governor, but not for a scandal.
Yeah. If anything, that's what I've heard from people. Like you should just keep Eric Adams because like all New York mayors are corrupt and bad. So like what's the point? Which is not really the right answer. I mean, you can find someone.
I mean, Eric Adams is especially bad in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather
he's
have
especially
the corruption
bad
of the other ones, honestly, than this one. Yeah. Like
he's also compromised. Like I'm sorry, like he's being blackmailed by the president, who's a fascist.
Like if you want to be in power and be corrupt by like enriching yourself somehow, that's definitely preferable to like being in power but taking orders from someone who's so horrible because you have to keep yourself out of jail. I mean, I think that's the worst of it all. Yeah.
I think it does also speak to like a problem I haven't said anything about prior. There are a lot of Democrats are also very corrupt, and it puts them in situations like this because they have like a previously agreed upon like level of corruption that they engage with.
Menendez just got locked up, so
like bipartisan corruption that exists, like people insider trading, stuff like that, and that does make them vulnerable to when a president like Trump comes in, who might be willing to like overstep the boundaries and like complicate this like ceasefire on certain things. Obviously, you can't be trafficking gold bricks, but it seems like quite commonplace to be engaging in all types of legalized bribery or, semi-legalized bribery that like make all of our politicians, vulnerable to one degree or another. Eric Adams obviously is like a unique case, but like these are things that can rear their ugly head.
Yeah. Well, I had meant to do this yesterday, this Kansas State thing. It's actually a pretty interesting story, I would say. So Kansas is, I think they did it. It might be official now, but they were basically debating a bill on the floor regarding SNAP funds being used to purchase soda and candy and junk food, which is something Republicans have been saying my entire life, that if you are receiving food assistance from the government, we should be restricting it so we can tell you what you can buy with your SNAP benefits because you're too poor to be able to afford to buy food on your own. I mean, we have such a threadbare social safety net in this country. And SNAP is one of the only programs that keeps a lot of people from starving or with malnutrition. And oftentimes, unhealthy food or soda or chips, it's the cheapest food.
Calorie rich, yeah. But also one reframe is the idea that this is just very generous food. There are restrictions that that SNAP can't be used to buy hot food. It's the most fucking disgusting policy, most elitist bullshit, most clearly like contrary to the whole complaint being made about junk food here, that you go into a deli, you can't get a hot sandwich. It's just war on the poor. And this whole discussion about, people should be given way more food assistance paid for by the rich parasites running the country, and they should be able to spend it on whatever the fuck that they want.
Yeah, I mean, this is paternalism. The Republicans pretend like it was Mike Bloomberg restricting soda sizes. That's really the big government that's like really affecting or trying to tell you what you can and cannot eat. I mean, that's literally what's happening in this instance.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable to see this exchange and them center this around banning SNAP recipients from buying these kinds of things from what we saw with the entirety of like Michelle Obama's weight loss campaign during Obama's presidency and how much vitriol that inspired from the right of like, don't take away our choices to put bad stuff in our body to maha now. And so this is essentially basically in this debate, this is a Democratic state senator, Cindy Hulsher. She's trying to combat the Republicans on this because they're trying to ban SNAP funds from being used on soda and candy, as I mentioned. And for folks that don't know, the federal government covers 100% of SNAP benefits to households. The state governments, if they choose to, not to restrict it, but red states like to do this all the time, they share the administrative costs with the federal government. So this is really a very paltry sum that they're debating. But the end goal is really just immiserating people and making poor people feel miserable.
So you wish to further explain your amendment?
Essentially, this amendment calls for us as a legislative body to live by the same rules that we are applying to other populations because we are talking about taxpayer funds and essentially assistance from the government.
Questions on the amendment? Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a question on the amendment. Earlier, we heard from another senator that his assertion was that any salary or benefit paid with public monies or taxpayer money or a government employee or public service employee
Republican
should be prohibited from buying soft drinks and candy. Is that the assertion of the carrier of the amendment as well?
Senator from Johnson.
The assertion is that what we are trying to apply in the overall bill, prohibiting the purchase of sugary items, as well as soda would apply also to us as a legislative body, and the concern for health issues.
Senator from Sedgwick, additional question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we shouldn't be allowed to use our salary to buy popper candy.
Senator from Johnson.
These are taxpayer funds that are coming to us as legislators in this bill as far as the prohibitions on SNAP recipients. Again, the premise was outlined that those are taxpayer funds, and we as a body should be concerned with how those funds are being used.
Senator from Sedgwick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So teachers are paid with taxpayer funds. Are teachers prohibited from buying poppin' candy with their own salary that they earn? Is the carrier of this amendment equating that with SNAP benefits?
Senator from Johnson.
No, not at all. That is salary. We're talking here about per diem, which is assistance given to us to manage our expenses while we are on the road.
Senator from Sedgwick, additional questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't believe that's what I heard earlier, so I appreciate the clarification. This is only for per diem. Who gets a per diem?
Senator from Johnson.
This is in regard to this legislative body, which is working to put guardrails on certain populations receiving assistance.
Senator from Sedgwick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we can all see what this amendment is. It's a false argument. It's comparing apples and oranges from a salary and a benefit through employment and a SNAP benefit. And I would urge the body to vote this amendment down. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sure you would.
Evil.
I mean, it's not the salary, and she was so specific. It's the per diem. This is not your salary. This is given to state legislators if they want to basically use this stipend, similar to a SNAP benefit, on food that they want to eat when they are working in the Kansas government. It's actually almost exactly analogous, but she betrays it there by basically saying, well, we're employed, so it matters. Oh, okay, gotcha. So again, this isn't about anyone being healthy. It's not about you being healthy or unhealthy with taxpayer dollars, or someone else being unhealthy with taxpayer dollars. It's about you feeling entitled to make whatever choices you want because you are on a higher income threshold than folks that may be on SNAP benefits who want to make the exact same choices with the same pool of money that you say should not be used for chips or pop or whatever. I mean, that was a good example of the hypocrisy right there.
Right.
And I think that amendment failed, by the way.
Right. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great point to make that it's not about it's not about the health issue. Like, they love to pretend that this is what it's really about, and they love to, especially, with Robert, with RFK Jr. up there now. And they point to his, he's only caring about health. Oh, it's so great. And you pointed out earlier the hypocrisy with how Michelle Obama was basically advocating for healthier lunches. And they looked at that as some sort of tyrannical overreach of government. But it was never about health, and it's never going to be about health. It's about controlling people who they deem to be lesser than them because they might be on some temporary assistance or otherwise, or long-term assistance. Either way, it doesn't matter. They deserve to. All people deserve a treat once in a while.
And
I mean,
also,
it's ridiculous.
people on SNAP, many of them are employed. There are 41 million average recipients of SNAP. That is not the number of unemployed people in this country.
Right. But
so
I would say
they're
that's
working
not
a starvation wage for Walmart or something like that, and they're not allowed to use their SNAP benefits to purchase soda from the grocery store.
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Right, but I would say that added addendum there doesn't matter to them because still, they shouldn't be getting that to begin with, according to the people who would poo-poo on them using it for a soda every now and then. They just don't want to see people getting help from the government unless they're the ones getting help from the government. I mean, look at all the joy and rapture from the right now over this ridiculous idea. There's a notion that Elon Musk, because he vaguely mentioned it once in public, is going to send everyone every taxpayer a $5,000 Doge dividend for the savings they've made. If any check goes out divided equally among taxpayers, which it's not going to, but if by some chance they get it out and divided amongst taxpayers, we're talking about like what, $4? I mean, $5,000. Where are they getting this number from? The whole point was to lower the debt, and they're about to send trillions of dollars out to Americans. Are you kidding me? But that doesn't matter because these people just want to see them getting the money from the government and the others being hurt. It's that simple. Like you see it too in the people who lose their job or had one of the benefits that they received from whatever contractor or program the government was providing that Trump just rolled back along with Elon Musk. You see it all right now, like the federal workers who were Trump supporters coming out saying, "Oh, I was a military veteran. I thought I would be spared, but I supported what he wanted to do, but not to me. Not to me." Yeah, no shit. Like that's the mantra of the conservatives.
Yeah, I mean Dick Cheney too, right? When his daughter came out as gay, he decided that he would still not, push the Bush administration or the Bush campaign in 2004 to like abandon its calls to ban gay marriage in the Constitution, which, by the way, overturning Obergefell just came up in the North Dakota state legislature. So they're urging Republican groups to try to overturn gay marriage in the Supreme Court. We told you that would happen. If the Republicans keep getting elected, they won't just stop at trans people. They're going after them, too.
That's why gay people move out of North Dakota.
Yeah.
There's all the fucking bigots there. Scheinbaum, we talked about this earlier, but that had a food basket. This is a better way of dealing with this supposed problem, which frankly both parties want to do, including Bloomberg, which is to control people's behavior through state action. It is to provide them using public services. So Scheinbaum went to all these grocery stores, including Walmart, saying you have to provide a basic basket, including 24 basic foods, and you have to provide it at $44. That's 12% less than it was before she got involved. That's how you deal with this stuff. It's not like anytime let's from the bottom down control people's behavior, that needs to be resisted.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the Bloomberg soda ban either. I just want to make that clear. I didn't really like it at the time, but it is just an example of the kind of thing that they freak out about. But
yes,
they don't.
Or Michelle Obama, too.
Yes, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, they don't like
you
being
all knew
told
where
what
I
to
stood
do.
on the soda ban.
They don't want to be told what to do. They just like Matt said, they want to tell other people what to do. Like I know I shouldn't be, but I'm just always shocked by like the level of antisocial, ideation that is just prevalent among certain like segments of the right. Like they're just like gleefully rubbing their hands and being like, poor people don't deserve candy. They shouldn't have candy because like it's actually bad for them. Like, so paternalistic in a way that is just not reflective of the way they live their lives or the way they like, we know how Americans love candy. Like we don't need to like do a breakdown of like the charts, but it really is just like, wow, like not even as, I guess, grandiose and like racist as like the welfare queen narrative, just like petty and mean, like,
cruel.
I got into an argument.
It's also important to like point out who this really like hurts. Like removing like, the ability to buy candy with this stuff. Like I have kids, you send kids to school with packed lunch, and it's part of the lunch. You have the main meal and, a drink and then a snack. Some schools, depending on the grade level, even have snack time earlier before lunch. Those children who are on SNAP benefits, if they have that removed, the parents might not be able to afford the type of things that would classify as a snack, meaning those kids would not be able to eat during that time period. I mean, that's what they want to do. That's what they want. They want to hurt kids because that's who it's really going to hurt.
I mean, Matt brings up the Scheinbaum example, but another example is Tim Walz in Minnesota. Free breakfast and lunch for school kids. Do it. Nationalize it.
Do it. And candy doesn't inherently, obviously in moderation doesn't inherently make you unhealthy. Lack of activity is more likely to make you unhealthy. And we know that Republicans don't want you to have any free time off of work. They want you to work until you die. And so you're not allowed to have candy when you're working your 18-hour shift at like Walmart. And you're also not allowed to have any free time that you might use to like improve your physical fitness in any other way. Like if you're not lucky enough to be like a podcaster or like a dynasty fail son who can afford to like work out 3 days a week and inject testosterone into your ass 5 days a week, you just don't get to be fit. You're just not allowed to have, not allowed to be fit, not allowed to have candy. But again, this is their reaction, I think, to the obvious and visible waning health conditions in the United States of America as a result of like the COVID-19 pandemic that was largely left unaddressed, our failing, healthcare infrastructure, and just like the rising cost of healthcare broadly. And they're just going to try to pin it on like too many people are eating Twix bars,
Yep.
Too many people are eating
pathology choices.
Yeah.
And every stupid conservative Christian out there needs to salve their conscience with a tweet like this. This is what radicalized me. This is a guy replying to the Babylon Bee thing. I was buying canned veggies and ramen noodles and working 2 jobs, and the family in front of me bought a cart full of junk food with food stamps, then broke out another roll to pay for big screen TVs. I don't believe anything like that, but to the extent that people have experience on food stamps, all that I say is that those benefits should have even been more generous, paid for by the kind of guys like Elon Musk, and being petty and jealous about what other poor people are spending their money on is fucking disgusting.
It's really gross.
Right. What kind of what kind of person looks at someone who is less fortunate than them and gets angry and jealous over it? Like, that's a you problem, my man. Like that's you
well,
need
they
to
get
look
off
within,
on
and,
putting
like,
their boots on people's necks. I mean, they are into hierarchies and they want to be on top. And just to give you the sense of how many, I mentioned the 41-ish million on average people who use SNAP in a month. In 2023, SNAP benefited 200,000 Kansas at a federal cost of over $500 million. But as I mentioned earlier, the administrative costs, that's what's on the state, and the federal government shares it with them. So it's just ridiculous. This isn't costing Kansas anything. In fact, it's a massive benefit for 200,000 Kansans. But where is this? This is like, so Alan Grayson isn't in Congress anymore, and he had some allegations against him. This is not an endorsement of him as a person, although back in the day, I really liked these kinds of stunts because I miss... Even Anthony Weiner was like this, right? Also somebody with a bad personal life or some issues there. But doing the partisanship and calling out Republicans, where is this? Alan Grayson, the Republican healthcare plan, die quickly. This was during the debate over the Affordable Care Act and patient protection during 2009, the Obama administration. The Republican plan for healthcare is that. No amount of Maha rebranding changes that because it still is a bespoke, personal choice-driven healthcare philosophy that is about how many supplements you can purchase or how many, ounces of colloidal silver you put in your water or how many times you tan your butthole or whatever they're talking about. Like...
Or if it's red dye number 3, they ran that guy out of town.
Exactly. Matt is referring to the FDA administrator who was just basically let go, right? Who led the ban on red dye number 3, which was making people sicker.
Yeah, I can't remember if they were let go or they like resigned because they couldn't do their work under those conditions, but same thing.
But for all of these issues, so healthcare, the pandemic has reinvigorated the need for a Medicare for all system, a public option at the very least, but a Medicare for all system is what needs to be pursued. And we need to have Democrats going out there and combating this and not ceding the ground of health to the Republicans, because as in the clip we just played, it's the same arguments. It's still austerity. It's still about punishing the poor, but they pretend like they have a new angle on it. And it's all the same stuff. Democrats on the federal level, that Democrat in Kansas did a good job. but should be going out there with plans about like, what's the Republican healthcare plan? It's for you to die quickly. Name a bill after one of the federal workers who was fired most egregiously about protecting the federal workforce. What's their version of the Laken Riley Act for victims of our for-profit healthcare system? I mean, I'd name it after Luigi, but I understand that's not realistic for people in Congress to do it. Name it after somebody who died because they couldn't get their cancer care because they couldn't afford it, or who were bankrupted and ended their life because of such horrors. I mean, there are tens of thousands of people that this happens to every year. This is the kind of politics that needs to return. But right now, I mean, this was the year before Citizens United. Matt, you made this point, and I'm returning to it about like now this new crop of Democratic leadership is coming up in the 14 years since Citizens United, right? Or was it 2012 or 2010? I keep forgetting. I think it was 2010. And 2010, thanks, Bradley. And they are all in the era of big money, and it has defanged them to a degree. Like, I want to return to this kind of politics and calling it like it is. That's my message for the day, folks. You want to read some IMs and get out of here? Big balls.
I agree with you, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you for validating me. Big Balls McCedar says, name the Medicare for All bill after the United Healthcare CEO. Again, these are things we would do, perhaps not realistic. John from T-Berg, unfortunately, the Democrats' version of the Laken Riley Act was the Laken Riley Act. Yes, exactly. Emma's distant cousin, as a public school employee, it's annoying how much people forget we pay taxes too, though our paycheck deduction, sales tax, and other property taxes. If we mortgage or own a house, I would enjoy seeing these lawmakers go on food stamps and cash assistance and then have to become as poor as you have to be to get state assistance.
That's the thing with all of these so-called cuts, is that was money that was going to civil servants or researchers at universities or what have you. That is good for the economy in those places.
Yeah.
What's not good is when we all have to pay our student loans back to users who shouldn't have been involved in education in the fucking first place. That does not go to any local contractors or restaurants or even your landlord. That goes to parasites, again, who should have never been involved. Right. And it's the same thing with this sort of thing. Like, we're doing this all to cut taxes. We're cutting people who work in parks to give more money to Jeffrey Sachs and Elon Musk so they can gamble with it more. It's a fucking joke and this is our entire media calling it like cost savings. Cost savings for who?
Yeah.
Well, it's so they can crash our economy gambling with it on the other end. But just to your point, I mean, it's so sad that people don't realize like the people getting fired are just their neighbors. And maybe it's because they don't necessarily, especially in these small towns where like the federal government either through or the state government or directly are the main employer.
Largest employer in Kansas City, the federal government.
Yeah, the people being fired are like your neighbors. And obviously, the way we live now, people live in those huge McMansions and suburbs, probably around Kansas City, and don't even know most of their neighbors. But that's going to have a deleterious effect on your community, like, on the price of houses in your community, on like the occupancy rate of your community as people are forced to like sell and flee, that people just don't even realize it because they're just so hopped up on this idea that someone out there is getting money who doesn't deserve it. Someone out there is like, taking from me and using it for what they want. And I don't agree with that. Like, it's very, very like, self-destructive. It's a very self-destructive type of ideology that has taken hold of like all of America, not just the Republican Party, but all of America. And it seems centered in these places like that are deep red.
Yeah, I accidentally said Jeffrey Sachs. I mean David O. Sachs, the South African entrepreneur. And these people are parasites. They don't build anything. They're riding just monopoly into the ground as the things that they're supposed to secure an advantage on, like AI or like industrial capacity, is being dominated by China. And like, not just the DeepSeek AI stuff. You also have their cars that are going to eat Tesla's lunch. These are the people that we have given the keys over to American economic priorities, and they have ran us into the fucking ground. They have planes crashing.
Fantastic Moron says, as a SNAP recipient, I don't spend much of it on anything that doesn't need to be prepared. It's ultimately much cheaper to buy ingredients and cook it. That said, everyone who can grow their own food and should, especially in the face of cuts to the FDA. We all need to be self-reliant. But from a leftist perspective that adds sustainable practices and mutual aid, let's face it, we cannot count on support from anyone, regardless of ideology.
We need the state.
Yeah,
we're not going to be able to replace the state. Sorry.
Yeah, no, he's a SNAP recipient basically though, so he's just essentially saying it's supplemented. There are ways to grow in small urban spaces that can provide for a family. It just takes time figuring out. I agree with Matt's sentiments though. It can't be solved like that, but if you want to do something from a systemic perspective, but that is a beautiful idea, I think, in the short term, if you have the capacity to, but like specifically in apartments, it can be really hard.
And also that money goes to farmers. Like it's not going to do drag time story hour. It goes to people growing food.
Yeah. Mr. Jackpots, what O'Brien is, what'd you say?
No, you said drag time story hour. I thought you said Drake time story hour. And I'm like, damn, I'm glad that tax dollars not going to Drake.
USA has been giving Drake millions of dollars to do library reading.
I mean, are they that concerned about what? Well, whatever. I won't say it. I don't want to get sued. Mr. Jackbots, what O'Brien is doing just feels like a total victory of aesthetic and cultural politics over material conditions and solidarity. Grim.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Aubrey, while I do appreciate the soberness of your coverage of the ongoing autocratic takeover, I would appreciate it if you could at least give Jeffries due credit for his clarity that God's in fact still on the throne. Well, thank you, Aubrey. Constructive criticism. We'll try to do a little bit more of that. Presidents come and go. What are you going to do? Just stunning. What are the polymarket odds of Donald leaving this earth the same way as the king of rock and roll? On the toilet. Well, I mean,
after eating a bunch of burgers.
Yeah, isn't Donald's issue less the downers probably and more the allegedly some of the.
Well, no, the king's was constipation.
Oh.
But he's not. But he's a he's a teetotaler, so he's no alcohol.
Yeah.
Right.
But he takes those 80s housewife weight loss methamphetamines that to stay up. I saw The Apprentice. That's what he takes. Yeah, I mean they're great, but you shouldn't take them, especially at his age.
Like the character in the Aronofsky movie that is like people can only watch once and never again. The mother. Oh, mother. Yeah. No, not mother.
Oh, yeah.
The mother in the drug addiction movie.
Oh, in Requiem for a Dream?
Yes.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
I
watched that at in college at 3 in the morning. It was a bleak evening.
Shout out to all the generations that don't feel the need to watch Darren Aronofsky movies to feel high class, because I did, and those sucked.
Most overrated director. Well, Clint Eastwood's pretty overrated as a director. Overrated director of my that I was supposed to be watching sucks.
What's his?
I forget.
Best movie.
Black Swan's his best.
Oh yeah, okay, right. That's fair. That's definitely.
Sorry.
That's the right choice, I think.
Yeah.
No, I forget who said this, and it's just so true. It's like when you hear Darren Aronofsky, you just think that he's like an Eastern European auteur. Like you think that oh yeah, this is and then you don't know when you're young that he's just some guy from the Bronx, and so it's and so you just you build them up in your head.
No, I take it back. Binder is 100% right. The Wrestler's the Wrestler is one of the. Now I feel badly for being that hard on him. The Wrestler and Black Swan are his two movies worth watching. The Wrestler's one of the best movies. It also takes place around where I grew up, so it's a bit of one of my friends from middle school is an extra in that movie. She plays the babysitter in that movie because her dad did the lighting on the film. So I love The Wrestler. But anyway, okay, so 5 more and then we will get out of here. Yeah, they shot that film in New Jersey. Yada yada yada.
Big independent wrestling scene in New Jersey, so it makes sense. A lot of I'm sure there were a lot of extra wrestler talent to pull from there.
Yeah. But the rest, I really hate Requiem for a Dream, for example. And The Whale was horrendous. Sarah from Rhode Island. The harder things get, I'm seeing more anger towards those in poverty. I paid for my own soda and it was $3. Why should you get a free soda? I don't know how to get people to look at the guys on top. It's so very frustrating.
You're taught
It'll
not to.
happen.
Man, where are you seeing people say I resent that person buying a soda, where it's not mediated through Fox News or something? I'd be curious because I don't know. I have pretty conservative family people. Maybe they just hide that stuff from me.
I've only heard Trump say that, like when he was just like, "I've never seen a skinny person drink a Diet Coke." That's the only person. That's the only person I can think of. But this is like the new thing. Like people are like getting chimed up to start acting like this, and we got to nip it in the bud. People need to mind their own business. That needs to be a new rule. Like Bill Maher's new rule: mind your business. What are you buying? Mind your business.
Right.
What do you work here? Like, and even if you do, mind your business. Like Americans are so
pocket
nosy.
watching.
That used to be a conservative thing.
It used to be, but like they're the main ones who have their hand all up in your orifice. Like, just like, just mind it. Like damn, Karen, go pick up a puzzle. Like, I don't know, like shit. Like, you can't have a Coke anymore. Like America, you can't have a Coke and a burger. Like, damn, you don't got nothing anymore. It's just like it's got Trump beefing with governors. That's boring. Trump is boring.
It's like sending someone to the gulag here is like telling an American they can't have a burger and a pizza and a Coke.
It's an anti-American hate crime. Pardon Luigi says, I cannot agree with Emma more. It's a shame Alan Grayson allegedly was an asshole to his wife. Can't remember all the details, but he fought Republicans like hell, like no one ever did. We need that aggressive level of fighting again. The majority report is giving free S-tier campaign advice to the Dems, and they are flopping badly. I want to start featuring, once we get more primary challengers, I want to start featuring them on this show because, Justice Democrats, I think, benefited a lot from progressive media coverage that may not be covering them or highlighting them as much anymore. So it's hard to get media attention when you're a primary challenger. But I'm hoping for a primary challenge for like a majority of these Democrats in Congress in the next
Anyone
cycle.
who isn't explicitly like social democratic at least, or progressive, like real. I mean progressive, labor progressive.
Right. Jay Tingle, Elvis is believed to have OD'd on morphine in his bathroom. He was driven to Memphis Methodist, which was not nearly the closest hospital to Graceland. This was because Elvis's doctor was prescribing the liquid morphine from the pharmacy at the hospital, and he needed to cover his tracks. Yes.
Oh, I missed
It's because opiates make you constipated. I used to be a big Elvis head back in the day when I was like 11.
How old are you?
I was 11. I had
I had an Elvis
interest.
phase. I had an Elvis phase too when I was little. Yeah.
Yeah. It was also why I got into
I don't know
Johnny
what it
Cash.
was.
That was in the mid 2000s.
Maybe it was a.
I loved that. I did love the Elvis movie though. I loved the Baz Luhrmann movie.
That happened 2 years ago.
I know, but I'm just saying it was like I didn't expect to because I didn't really have as much of a connection, but I did really enjoy it.
I was big into Abbott and Costello back then.
I mean, I was also into I Love Lucy at this time. I had old person interests. I'm Benjamin Buttoning, guys.
Nick at Night did a lot to our generation. I'll tell you.
I wasn't allowed to watch
Nickelodeon
or Cartoon Network, so this is why I am the way I am.
But that stuff did come on late, like I like Bonanza and Gunsmoke and.
Come on,
like
Three's
that.
Company. I would watch that. I mean, it was on TV. Nick
I
at
Love
Night.
Lucy, Honeymooners, Andy Griffith Show.
All right, well, 2 more, and then we're getting the hell out of here. SoBe and SoCal. I love Marjorie Taylor Greene in The Wrestler. Oh, that's funny. That's very funny. And the final I am of the day. Miss MR Global South says, people don't realize how quickly local economies can collapse after closing a federal facility. They closed a naval station in Vallejo, California, and the city collapsed shortly after because the economy couldn't sustain itself since it was centered around services for military members. Exactly right. All right, folks. Appreciate you all. We will see you tomorrow.